You can spend decades becoming financially secure and still enter retirement thinking like someone who is one bad decision away from losing everything. The numbers may have changed, but your habits may not have. You still think in terms of building and protecting what you have. Then, at some point, something shifts. You stop asking only how to protect what you built and start asking what all of it is supposed to make possible. And that can change almost everything about retirement. For most of adult life, progress has a clear direction. More income is progress. More savings is progress. Less debt is progress. A larger portfolio is progress. Those measurements are useful because they give effort a visible result. You can look at a number and know that years of work, patience, and discipline produced something. But retirement introduces a strange problem. The old scoreboard may no longer tell the whole story. A portfolio can keep growing while your days become more complicated. You can save more money while giving up more time. You can protect every asset while carrying responsibilities you no longer enjoy. You can continue optimizing the finances long after the finances have become strong enough to support a different kind of life. That is where thinking like a wealthy retiree begins to look different. It is not about believing you have unlimited money. It is about recognizing that, at some point, wealth has to become more than a number that keeps moving upward. It has to become useful. For decades, accumulating was the job. Now the job may be different. The question starts to become, what do I want this money to do for my life? That sounds simple, but it can be a profound change in identity. A person who has spent 30 or 40 years being a saver, planner, builder, and protector does not automatically stop seeing themselves that way. Those qualities may be part of who they are, and they are valuable. But if every financial decision still has to serve accumulation first, retirement can become a continuation of the same project instead of a new phase. Thinking like a wealthy retiree begins when the identity expands. You are not only someone who built resources, you are now someone who can use resources to shape time. If conversations about retirement, money, and the psychology behind our decisions are useful to you, consider subscribing. One of the first changes is how you begin to value time. During the working years, money often feels scarce, and time feels renewable. You tell yourself you can do something later, travel later, slow down later, pay for convenience later, outsource something later. The assumption is that there will be another weekend, another year, another season when life is less busy. Retirement changes that equation. You may still have decades ahead of you, but time begins to feel more visible. And once you see time as an asset, some financial choices look different. Driving across town to save a small amount may stop feeling efficient. Doing every home project yourself may stop feeling admirable. If it consumes an entire weekend, you would rather spend another way. Managing a complicated arrangement simply because it saves money may no longer feel like the obvious choice. This is not about paying for everything. It is about recognizing that money is not the only resource being spent. Sometimes you are spending energy, sometimes attention, sometimes an afternoon, and sometimes flexibility. And once enough financial stability exists, saving every dollar can become less important than saving some of your life. That shift naturally leads to another change. Simplicity starts to look more valuable. Earlier in life, more can feel like success. More space, more possessions, more accounts, more projects, more commitments, more options. But almost everything you own or maintain adds another layer to manage. A larger house needs maintenance. A second property creates another set of responsibilities. More belongings need storage, repair, insurance, organization, or decisions. More commitments create more calendars, and more financial complexity creates more systems to track. At some point, wealth can stop being about how much you can add and start being about how much complexity you can remove. That is a very different mindset. A wealthy retiree may look at something they can easily afford and still decide not to own it because it adds another thing to manage. They may choose the easier option over the more complicated one. They may simplify accounts, reduce obligations, or choose a home that asks less from them. The question becomes, does this add value, or does it simply add management? Simplicity is not deprivation. Sometimes simplicity is what money buys when you no longer need your life to contain more moving parts. Then there is margin. This may be one of the biggest changes of all. During accumulation, efficiency can feel like intelligence. Every dollar has a job. Every investment should perform. Every purchase should be justified. Every system should be optimized. But a life with no spare capacity is fragile, even if it looks efficient on paper. Thinking like a wealthy retiree often means becoming more interested in having room to absorb the unexpected, a budget that can handle an unplanned expense, a schedule with enough open space to accommodate a change, financial commitments that do not require every month to go exactly as expected, enough flexibility that a repair, a family need, or a change in plans does not force an immediate chain reaction. Margin is not wasted capacity. Margin is what allows you to absorb disruption without having to reorganize everything around it. Optimization makes a system efficient. Margin makes a life resilient. I've left a few helpful resources related to retirement planning and money psychology in the description and pinned comment below. This change also affects the way money relates to identity. For much of life, financial progress can become evidence. Evidence that you worked hard, that you were responsible, that your decisions paid off, and that you are secure. But once wealth begins to support the life itself, it no longer has to carry so much symbolic weight. You do not need every financial choice to confirm something about who you are. A simpler car can still be the right car. A smaller home can still be an upgrade in quality of life. A quiet retirement can still be a successful retirement. You stop asking whether a choice looks like success and start asking whether it supports the way you actually want to live. That is a subtle but important change. Money stops being proof. It becomes infrastructure. And infrastructure works best when it supports life quietly in the background. That is also why intentional spending looks different from both frugality and indulgence. The question is no longer, how little can I spend? But it is not, how much can I get away with spending, either. A wealthier mindset asks something more useful. Which uses of money actually improve the life I want? Sometimes the answer is comfort, sometimes convenience, sometimes travel, sometimes family, sometimes fewer obligations, sometimes paying more for something that saves time, sometimes spending nothing because the thing adds no real value. Intentional spending is less about the amount and more about alignment. You are using money in a way that matches your priorities instead of automatically following an old rule. This is where the identity shift becomes clear. You are no longer treating wealth as a project that must always become larger. You are treating it as a resource that can support a more deliberate life. That does not mean accumulation suddenly becomes irrelevant, and it does not mean long-term planning disappears. It means those things are no longer the only definition of financial wisdom. At some point, maturity stops being only about building more. It also becomes about using what you built with intention. A useful question is to look at one recurring decision in your life and ask, am I optimizing this for more money or for a better retirement? Maybe it is where you live. Maybe it is how much you manage yourself. Maybe it is how you travel. Maybe it is a responsibility you keep accepting. Maybe it is simply how much of your week gets consumed by things that no longer matter as much as they once did. You do not have to change the answer. The value is noticing what you are optimizing for, because the shift toward a wealthier retirement mindset may not look dramatic from the outside. You may live in the same house, drive the same car, and spend roughly the same amount. But internally, the role of money changes. It stops being mainly something to accumulate, defend, measure, and maximize. It becomes a tool for preserving time, reducing complexity, creating margin, supporting choices, and making the life you already built more usable. Maybe thinking like a wealthy retiree is not believing you can afford everything. It is finally knowing what is worth affording. If you enjoyed this video, watch the next video on your screen for more thoughtful insights on retirement and money.